Hi dear Daoland friends, welcome in this new Daoland video. I'm going to talk to you today about the future of your healthcare, my healthcare too, of course. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the historical context of healthcare, like how it was done in the present and then how it is done in the recent past, and also how it was done in the far away past. And I start with the last one. So I start with the faraway past and I work my way up to the present. And in the end, I'm going to talk to you about the future of healthcare as I see it as a Dowlander and as a designer of healthcare programs and as a trainer for people to learn to take care of their own health, irrespective of what modern medicine tells you to do. Of course, I am a Chinese medicine practitioner. I am a Daoist. I am a Daoist practitioner also, and I practice all kinds of things that have to do with developing long life. And for this, I have developed a few programs, and I'm going to talk to you about that at the far end. So if you are interested in your own health, which I am sure you are, then please keep looking all the way to the end of this video so that you have the best kind of information and will help you to make good decisions about your future. So let's start. First of all, in every country there is another healthcare system, but the main tendencies of all the healthcare systems, they are based on legal issues. And that means that in the Americas in the 19th century, beginning 20th century, there were few legal processes. With the new modern medicine at that time, allopathic medicine, and they sued natural healthcare workers. These are all part of this Western natural medicine as it was in that time, was considered to be sort of a witchcraft and a sort of a hodgepodge of strange ideas, which in some cases it actually really is. And these Western medicine said, like, we are scientific, we have a good idea about what is right and what is not right. What they meant is that they said they can prove particular kind of things about medicine that are not being proved by other kinds of medicine. And this has to go back to history. And then they said basically all these natural medicines, because they are not scientific, they don't have a scientific basis, they are folk medicine and therefore they cannot be valid. There are reasons why that is not right, but we will discuss that hopefully later on also. In the prehistoric time, people were all involved with life. There was not such an order like now, and from findings in Turkey, in India, in China, and so on, it seems like most societies were quite egalitarian and not as brutish as people in the past thought. Even from Neanderthals, they found that they had a very big commitment to the maintenance of life among tribal members, and also even the Homo erectus, which is before the Neanderthals, they were already involved with care for the aging and the death and the diseased. So healthcare has always been part of being alive. After all of life is about survival. And survival is the only thing that we as human beings try to do. All the other things like building electrical cars or hydrogen cars or making airplanes or going to Mars, all these kind of things, they are all outcroppings, outgrowths of our attempts to stay alive in a world which seems to want to eat us and wants to starve us and wants to make us sick. And as a result of that, we have created a lot of different kind of things that we don't necessarily need for our survival, although we could reason in some cases that they definitely help us, but they also might kill us, which is very obvious in the current climatic and political arena of the world, that all these things that we invented are also endangering us more than nature itself does. Since the prehistoric times, cities of course developed, societies developed, villages developed, and people start accumulating a lot of knowledge. They started accumulating knowledge about mathematics, about architecture, about medicine, about how to grow food, how to keep cattle, and how to hunt more efficiently, and how to organize ourselves in more complicated ways. Unfortunately, a lot of our human beings are relatively selfish, so they think more about themselves than about others. And as a result of that, when they are living their life in society. They see opportunities, that's why they're called opportunists, and they try to get forward in life and go in advance of other people. And they don't try to really share what they gather, but they try to hold it to themselves. That accumulates at this time in the fact that so much of the world's wealth is concentrated in the hands of maybe 100 people or so. Yeah, so this is that kind of opportunism. And that is very antisocial, of course. It is antisocial to be rich. And if you happen to be rich while you're watching this, I'm sorry if you feel insulted, but you can do something by sharing your wealth and help other people with it. So this is one thing. If you are poor because you are having a job, or because you're working for a company. You're living in a society that actually exploits you to make these few people more rich and to give some people more power. This is just how it is, and that is nothing political when I say that, but this is just the way how we are organizing ourselves, as if we are one big anthill. In the development of all these kind of things, the knowledge that we gathered, we slowly started writing things down. And at the moment when we started writing things down, we started also extrapolating more and more information on the basis of information that there is. In history of mudras, from one of the texts that I am currently translating and where I will do a post about in the future, in the history of mudra development in China, hand forms, like, holding the yin-yang palm. And in this kind of knowledge, it says that because of the development of our opposable thumbs and our fingers and so on, we developed culture as an essential aspect of fingers. And they make a statement in that book basically that says that if we wouldn't have fingers, our brain would not have developed and we wouldn't have invented a lot of things. Because when we are handling an object, we are handling that object and we gradually learn to do things with it. And as a result of being able to handle a pen, you also have the majorettes and you have kung fu styles where they swing with sticks around. So there you go. When we get further with that, then you can see that because of this elaboration on the ability to use our body, all kind of things were developed. And in the wealth of our developments, we actually created more space to do more things. Actually, the fact that we went standing straight made that our hands became more functional. And monkeys, because they live in a tree, they need their hands to hold themselves, so they won't develop the same kind of technology as we do. If they would live on the land and they would start standing upright more and they would live like that all the time because they have to look on a larger distance for whatever they want to eat, then eventually over millions of years they will also develop in a similar kind of fashion as we. If we kill them before that time, they will not have that opportunity. So extinction of animals is basically genocide in all circumstances. So hunting, eating animals, all these kind of things, they are a certain kind of risk factor. Growing animals for food, when it happens on a humane scale or on an animalistic scale, where I mean with animalistic, a respectful scale and not a bestial scale, then at that moment, then of course that should be fine. I'm a vegetarian myself, but I can imagine that under certain circumstances, also because in Chinese medicine, meat and fish is seen as medicine at certain points. All foods are seen as medicine at certain points. So you have to be always respectful about what you eat, how you eat, and why you eat it. So these are things you have to learn. At the moment, when you look at that prehistoric times, then you see that in the modern time, in the time of the plague and other diseases, biological medicine started having its first findings, and a magical person, like the beginning of the Renaissance, you started having the developments towards chemistry, where first of all the esoteric chemistry of what in China would be called Waidan, but here in this case would be called just alchemy, would be considered to be the beginning of our modern chemical industry, and therefore the gradual development of medicines. At the moment when medicine started developing, they had a high ideal with the formation of the World Health Organization, the United Nations and so on. There were these high ideals that were shared between many countries, and there were a lot of countries that were running behind, and the ideal was to pull them all together so that we could cooperate and that we could start making the world more healthy because of vaccines, because of all kind of other things. They did succeed with that. These things had to be financed, and on the backbone of this modern medicine, capitalism did grow also, not only because of that, but also because people became gradually more wealthy. Because of this, financing got a strong foothold in medicine. So at the moment when Western medicine started to work on its rights to be the only one, and started demoting all the other ones as crappy stuff that you don't have to be busy with, then at that moment you could see that the financing of alternative medicine, natural medicine, was never really organized. Everything was just local, and this became a worldwide moloch, a machine with interacting companies that would maybe provide medicines for local areas, but they would draw their materials from all over the world, and they started vampirizing on natural medicines to find all kind of stuffs that they could use, and also methodologies. That brings me to the present, because I am a Chinese medicine practitioner, and TCM is one of these examples of things that are being exploited by Western medicine. And because of the political situation in China and other parts of the world, there's not only China, there's also Japan, and there's Korea, and there's Vietnam, there's Mongolia, and so on. Acupuncture is being drawn into this Western medicine idea because they felt this need to modernize, because they felt they had fallen behind, because their theories were not able to see the same things that Western medicine said they didn't see. As a result of that, you see that since the 1940s, Chinese medicine, Japanese medicine already earlier, and Korean medicine also already earlier, they started modernizing and they started adapting themselves towards the Western medicine. And the current state of TCM is that 70% of TCM is actually Western medicine. Even the definition of channels, of points, functionality of points, the functionality of herbs, and so on, everything is being done through Western medicine. When you go to China, to a Chinese medicine hospital, 90% chance that you're going to be tested with Western medical tests, blood tests and radiation tests, and so on, to define what you have. You get a Western medicine predicate of what disease you have, and then you get being treated by acupuncture or by herbal medicine as a formula based on the chemistry of the herbs. So in that case, you can see that that is the antithesis of what is meant originally in Chinese medicine. Originally, Chinese medicine, of course, was not Chinese, but it was a folk medicine. That means that people, daoist, because of their Neidan training, they were involved in studying medicine and health and so on, because when they were treating people in the way that they did that in the past, which is also different from the present, in that case, they were learning something about being alive, and that helped them in finding their way to become an immortal. They would also make people aware that they have to do something about their health to be able to actually become healthy and stay healthy. And that was the state of healthcare in China before modernization. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that at this moment. Because what you see happening with TCM is that it is gradually being absorbed in Western medicine, also because almost all countries, they oblige people to first study an aspect of, or many aspects of being of Western medicine, or being even a medical doctor. At the moment, when you have become a medical doctor in the practice of Chinese medicine, of course, you're being indoctrinated to use Western medicine theoretical foundations, and although maybe your medicine will work in the cases that also Western medicine suggests that it might work, because there's limits on what you can do, then at that moment you can see that Chinese medicine is gradually being disappeared. So even though it's called TCM because you use needles, or you use Chinese medicine herbs, or you use Chinese massage techniques, in effect they become therapeutic, they become pre-prepared medicines that you buy in the form of tablets, pills, and so on. So they become a form of chemistry, and they involve putting needles inside a context which some people even call operation. And in doing so, and in becoming like that, you gradually see that the language of Chinese medicine becomes less important, because the way how the language of Chinese medicine is being interpreted actually is done in Western medicine terms, and no more in the way how Chinese medicine terms worked. That means that at this point we have to explain a little bit about Chinese medicine. So see this as an introduction of Chinese medicine if you don't know anything about Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine starts with self-observation, and in self-observation you start noticing how you are functioning. For this you need a theoretical model. So the model that is being proposed in the Huangdi Jing and other texts, and also further developed in the many Daoist meditation texts and many Daoist alchemical texts, all these kind of aspects, they show you what Chinese medicine is. In the West, only like a minuscule part of things are being translated, and very often clumsy at that. So if this is the amount of Chinese medicine text, then maybe this part has been translated. So it means that the understanding of Chinese medicine in the West is still relatively small. Yes, you can say there are particular kind of things that are translated from Chinese, but within the context and within the analysis and understanding of modern Western culture. So not in the understanding of the culture at that time. Even though it says Chinese medicine things, very often the meaning is being interpreted towards the West. One famous example I always mention in all my videos, or almost all my videos I think, is the concept of energy, which is a concept that you also hear medical doctors, GPs, talk about nowadays, but it is actually a term which has been developed in New Age medicine and is now being used generically and doesn't really mean anything anymore as a result of that. But everybody is then in the habit of using it. It is the same like saying yeah, so it doesn't really mean that much. I have other videos to explain you about that. There you get it. But we can talk about it another time. In this modern Chinese medicine, originally the idea was then self-observation and exercising yourself to create things in your health. The Sui dynasty and even before, there are many different kind of texts that explain to you how you can manage your body. In the Huangdi Jing it says if you don't manage your body and your morality, then at that moment you are doomed to become sick, and because of sickness you scar yourself, and as a result of the scarring you gradually will age, and as a result of aging you will die. Modern genetic research about aging shows basically that the decay of the structures of our body, because of actually the abuse of our body by wrong behaviors, is causing our body to gradually die off. And as a result of that, Western medicine has been able to let people live relatively longer life, but from historical graves and stuff like this, we already know that if you survive the first 5 years of your life, the chance that you would become 80 was actually the same like it is in modern society. The gains that Western medicine had is mostly in child mortality, not so much in making people live longer. In fact, because of medicine, people generally do not become more healthy, because this is where the problem of Chinese or Western medicine actually comes in. At a certain point, they started realizing in the capitalization of Western medicine that there is a lot of money to be made. So people started going with their companies, which were meant for the benefit of all people, to go to the stock market. And the stock market is built from a bunch of sharks, which are maybe improving the world, but they're also making a lot of money, and they're collecting gradually all this money for this few hundred people that are actually owing everything already worldwide. So at the moment when we see these things happening, you see that gradually the purpose of trying to heal people is disappearing. And what they do is they manage people. In the 70s, you already see sociological texts appear that are criticizing modern Western medicine and modern medicine to be a medicine of capitalization. And that means that they are only trying to get people back on the work floor so that they can do their job. But at the moment when they go with retirement, there is no much need anymore. And you see that insurance companies, which also started to come up in that time and became bigger and became denationalized, because in the beginning the governments took care of the people. So they nationalized healthcare and transport and so on to make sure that everybody got their share in health. They started privatizing these things, and they became companies. And these companies, they draw more and more funds from the people, and healthcare becomes more and more expensive. And the differences between different countries is nowadays huge. Like, for instance, our neighbor country, Belgium, in this country, the Netherlands. In Belgium, you pay about 10% of what you pay here, because there it is still nationalized, here it is privatized. In America, where everything is privatized, you pay even more. There is no real restriction on how much you pay for things. In Canada, it's slightly better, but there's also still countries that do not really have a healthcare. In China, you have an insurance, but basically that's a savings account where you collect money for your individual insurance, so that you only, well, you do not really share your insurance with other people. That's also a capitalization model, and it takes away from your spending, your daily spending. You're preparing for the future, but you do it by yourself, alone. At the moment when you see that these kind of things are happening, you see that as a citizen, as a person that lives in society, your chances of ever getting better with the information that is being made available, with the kind of therapies that is being made available, and with the kind of researches that are being thrown over you, you are having less and less chance to actually really improve in your life, even though maybe you can temporarily get relief from a particular kind of complaint. But you will see that the asymmetry of the non-holistic attention to your body or to your mind eventually creates new problems. Like in Chinese medicine, we have a saying, they say, if you don't solve a problem 100%, eventually that what is left will transport and will transform and cause a new problem. Then the medications in itself, they cause a big problem too. Because, as you know, many people, they come to the doctor with a medicine, with a disease, then they get a medicine, and this medicine gives side effects. Then they go to the doctor and they say, look, I have this problem, now I get this medicine, my complaint is better, but now I have these problems. And even though they are side effects from the medicine that they actually take, they're being treated as if they have a new disease. So they get another medicine, they have to in the meantime keep the other medicine to make sure that the other disease doesn't come back, and this way they gradually get balanced with more and more medication. A lot of people make a lot of money, but you do not get any better. You only get a more complicated disease pattern because you get treated for the side effects of the medication, and each new medication produces possibly new side effects. Yes, sure, there are people who are being helped statistically, but in reality you see that society as a whole is degenerating, and that manifests itself not only in the bad quality of food that contributes to less fertility, but also with the medications, which also causes less fertility. Of course, a lot of people who use a lot of medicine are already much older, but the age in where people start using medication becomes younger and younger, and even people at school already get medication to make sure that they are able to sit like in a straitjacket behind their desk so that they can study. But because of the medication, they learn less good, so they graduate at a much lower level than when their education would have been more idealized towards being a person instead of being a learning machine. So there we go. A lot of things and frustrations that I have in my work, and also of course from my own youth because of the education system, are here being transported. Now we go to the last part. I have talked about history, I've talked about the present and the disadvantages that present healthcare has, and that is financial, but it is also in the optics if you ever going to get cured. And there's a lot of vanity projects also, which are not always as safe as people very often hope. But at the moment when we talk about the Daoist program, specifically from where I talk about this, then I have developed as part of my PhD study my first thoughts about how society should do that. Because in Chinese culture, traditionally, everybody was morally responsible for their own health. That means that they had to do something their whole life to stay healthy. If they didn't, they should take their becoming sick for granted, and then they would have to suffer their terrible death. If they have a lot of money, they could afford a doctor, maybe to live in with the family and do particular kind of things. But in essence, they would basically gradually age and die. The thing is that in that process, as I said already at the beginning, the beginning of the process of Chinese medicine starts with White Dawn. That means that basically you are doing wizardry, chemistry, alchemy, and so on, and you ingest things and you make curses and you do all kinds of things, maybe exorcism even, to get rid of the disease factors. If these things are real or not real, in some cases exorcism actually maybe is valid because it brings you into a state of mind and in a state of development in your mind through which you can get out of a particular psychological conundrum that you're in at. From there, because of developing more introspection, partly influenced by Buddhism, partly influenced by themselves, you see that in Taoism more and more things were developed, exercise methods were developed, meditation methods were developed, analysis of the internal body through meditation, and so on, through which they started realizing a model of what it is to be a human and how you would eventually be able to overcome your malfunctions. This is what is basically the essence of healthcare. There is not a healthcare that makes you dependent on other people, like what Michel Foucault in the 1970s suggested in Birth of the Clinic. But it is the kind of independency that you need because you are the only person who really can understand you. Like, for instance, in the Daoist program, I teach people how to experience things, and I offer them the opportunity to learn the theoretical model that belongs with that if they want to, or they can use the theoretical model that belongs to their culture, whatever culture that might be. At the moment when they do so, then at that moment they are learning how the mechanisms of your life work, and then within a holistic context. Because yes, sure, our body is mechanistic, our mind is very often mechanistic, and it takes effort to get out of the determinism that is developed by biology to replace you eventually with a new generation. Even though we are holistic beings, we live in a holistic world, we try to separate things into different segments to try to take control over all kinds of things, and as a result that we forget that we are an integrated set of principles, and all these principles have to be addressed with every problem that you have. Even though we all like to keep things simple, that means you should keep your life simple, as Lao Tzu said, so no complications, no things that harm other people or yourself, and make sure that you have a quiet life so that you do not have no time to take care of yourself. That's basically it. So no jobs. I understand you don't want to hear that, but no jobs. Make sure that you live a life which makes it possible to take care of yourself. And that means that a job in that sense has to serve that purpose, not the other way around. It's not like your job is there for the boss is there for you. No, this is the way how you have to see it. You are the king of your life. At the moment when we are doing that, we need particular kind of things. And what are the kind of things that you actually need to develop a good health? First of all, you need a good movement system. And although I'm a big fan of Tai Chi Chuan, and I'm a big fan of particular kind of meditation techniques and so on, it is not necessary to learn Tai Chi Chuan. It's very complicated. But it is important to learn a particular kind of fitness system through which you learn how to control your breathing and how to control your movement. And then that is not just about breathing in the way how you see people do that when they do Shaolin boxing or even Wushu or even sometimes Tai Chi Chuan, where breathing out means moving away, and breathing in means contracting. But it is something completely different. It goes too far now to explain it. Then you need to learn to meditate, because you have to learn to find the root of your vitality, and you have to learn how to regenerate that, because when you grow older, the regeneration of your body becomes harder and harder when you have a lot of delay in taking care of yourself, and you start already having serious aging problems. And that means that every day meditating for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it is not a bad thing at the moment when you want to restrain yourself. So as a result of that, you start noticing your heart is not the center of your body, but your belly is the center of your body. And as a result of that, you start noticing that because of clearing up that center, you have need for a different kind of diet. So learning how to eat properly also is very important. That means for healthcare, to lower your cost in life for taking care of yourself up to a very high age, you need exercise, sort of a fitness exercise, which can be further developed over time. You need meditation to find the root of life, and you need a diet that will restrict you to the foods that you notice that will actually really help you, and it can keep you away from the foods that are not helping you. For instance, many people like all kind of things, Like some people eat spicy food, they like it. They like greasy food because they like it. They like fried foods because they like it. All these kind of things, the liking, the desire part, that's actually your body trying to kill itself. So you don't want to follow these kind of things. You want to really notice what is happening, and as a result of that, you will want to educate your liking of food. So even if you don't follow my program, this is something that you have to take with you, that liking things is not a good education. The intuition to take things because you feel that it's good for you can as well kill you. And I've seen that happening with a lot of people. And for mesmerism, we know that at a certain point, people started feeding itself all kind of poisonous bugs and each other. I've seen it also with people on LSD and on mushrooms, that people started feeding themselves all kind of poisonous drugs. And maybe they were lucky, but some of them were not lucky. And as a result, that they died. They didn't get better anyway. So that is a very important thing to take away with this. These skills I have developed in a particular kind of program. This program, of course, I have available for everybody. You can follow it by yourself or under my guidance. That doesn't really matter that much. I have it in 2 price sets, and I have it in a monthly project so that you can learn it. The idea is that you learn it in about 6 months. And at the moment when you learn it in about 6 months, you have the ability to control your own healthcare to a very large degree, so that you become less dependent on who cures you, who offers to cure you, and also on your budget. So that's a one-time spending, or if you do that in several terms, it's a relatively low spending, but the benefit of it is thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of euros or dollars or whatever kind of currency you are living with. So at the moment when you have that skill, you delay the onset of aging and you delay the development of disease a lot. I think about 60 to 80% of all diseases can be delayed forever, because diseases actually are only 20% of risk. All the other percentages are basically gradual degradation of your health. And this gradual degradation of your health gives you a lot of annoyance. Yes, you can get away with it for a long time, but sitting on a couch, sitting in a lazy chair, driving in your car, bicycling, or all kind of other things that people are doing for their health, going to the gym, all these kind of things, they gradually kill you. And that is not because I want to be cynical about that, and it's not because I don't have any proof about it, because biologists, physiotherapeutic researchers and so on, they all have proven that over and over and over again, that the things that people usually do for their health, which they say according to the government, this must be healthy, my doctor says this is healthy, in fact are causing aging and diseases. They are causing overheating, and heat is the source of 100 diseases. So that means that being able to regulate your temperature is very important. And in a good fitness, you learn to regulate your temperature so that you're warm when you need to be warm and you're cool at the rest of the time. Well, I have 10,000 things more to add to this, but I think for now this is enough. I have to cut a little bit in the text that I have been writing and making, and I hope that this video will contribute to your health a lot. In the links below or around this video, you will see the program that I have available for you. You can do also individual projects. We'll give also the individual projects. That doesn't really matter, but the coherence of the 3, that's basically your basic healthcare. I do a lot more than that in my courses, especially when you want to become a Chinese medicine practitioner. You first have to learn how to keep people alive and how to make sure that they flourish in their biological and their psychological functioning. So this is basically it. I look forward to hear more from you, and if you want to sign up or if you first want to talk with me, I am clearly available to you. My contact information is of course here in the social media app that I have. So if you don't hear immediately from me, please persist. Otherwise it might take a few days or a few weeks sometimes before I notice, because there are so many places where you eventually can see your social media things. It is difficult to keep track. I also have to make sure that everybody gets to learn the things that they need to learn. So thank you very much for your support. If you think this is a good idea, what I'm talking about, make sure you help me by liking and by giving a comment, by saying like you really like this and what you like most and what you think is most important, and also anything else that you want to say also, of course. the reason for this is because then the algorithms of the social media things, they think that that is very important. The other thing you can do, you can share it to your friends. Just send the link and say like, look, you have to really watch this. You help me with that, even maybe better than the regular commenting, because when it's being shared, that means that people think it is important to see. And as a result of that, people start talking more about it. And as a result of talking more about it, more people start thinking about it. And although the Daoland is the first in this kind of line of thinking, and my students are the first generation of Daolanders that are actually working with this kind of healthcare to bring this to people, you yourself, you can also become a Daolander, and maybe on the basis of the framework of the Daoland program, you can develop something like this on the basis of your culture. And you have to think about the goal has to be immortality. That is a very important part, because if the goal is not immortality, you're only delaying the inevitable. It doesn't mean that you're going to be immortal. I'm not saying that, but it helps. See you next movie.